The Consort Tournament by Watermelon's Melon Felon. Chapter 20. Luna smiled and patted Harry's hand. I can give you the answers to everything. These are things that you will have to find on your own. All I can tell you is that the people you hold most dear won't die. Harry's shoulders slumped and Luna felt for him. She could only see the resolution, but she could not see the journey to find it. So she could not give him the answers he was seeking, nor would she if she had them. Luna had faith in Harry. This impromptu job was surprising, yes, but he could handle it. She knew it. She had seen it. Harry would find a new side of himself because of this, and gain the confidence he needed to progress his own growing relationship with the Dark Lord. That was what mattered in the long run. The Dark Lord's contribution to the cure was enough to get the unspeakables working more diligently. Severus Snape is working even harder with your mum. You have to focus on magical Britain now. Put the disease from your mind and simply work. Voldemort, the man goes through hell and back in order to ensure that his familiar is protected from every kind of disaster known to mankind, but never once did he consider placing any spells over himself to protect himself. Did he not consider that despite being immortal, he was still susceptible to illness? And yes, maybe Harry was being a little unfair, but how could anyone blame him? Nagini was wrapped around Harry's shoulders as she had met him when he stepped through the front door of Slytherin Manor. Honestly, he hadn't really thought so far ahead that he would actually take up Voldemort's offer and marry him lawfully, let alone magically. So he hadn't considered that he would be moving into this huge arch manor that he was going to have to get acquainted with. The head house elf had excitedly greeted him as Consort Slytherin. They didn't even see the ring of gold that had appeared around his wrist when he'd verbally accepted Voldemort's claim to him, thereby marrying him magically. Harry didn't even know how they knew, but he wasn't going to ask. Master has talked about you often, Nagini told him. Oh, it was kind of obvious, actually. The man liked to hear himself speak. Harry had looked to the elf and asked, What is your name? Vashti! Vashti is Master Voldy's head elf, she is! Harry had withheld a snort at Master Voldy, and simply asked the creature to show him to the study, where the important things were. The creature beckoned him inside and led him up a floor and toward the left-hand side of the manor, where they stopped in front of an elaborate door with silver handles. The handles were in the shape of serpents with glowing red eyes. Harry reached out to grasp the left handle, and the golden ring around his wrist glowed a bit alongside the serpent's eyes, before the door popped open with a low hiss. Once he and Voldemort legally consummated their magical marriage, the gold will turn silver. In magic, they were married. In law, not so much. The final act had to be done in order for the law to officially take place. Harry shook his head, not wanting to consider that just yet. Not yet, at least. There was a pile of paperwork on the desk, and Harry groaned. Yes, he'd been trained in this particular work, but that didn't mean he wanted to do it. No one in their right mind wanted to do paperwork, especially if it dealt with foreigners. Master set a parcel tongue password for his drawers. You simply need to say Salazar, Nagini told him. Voldemort honestly needed to get an imagination. For the man who came up with the whales and managed to make it work together, he was surprisingly lacking in imagination. Harry was disappointed. He'd have to take the man aside one day and correct him. This could not be allowed to continue. Salazar, he hissed. The drawers all popped open with a low hiss, much like with the door to the office. Harry sighed and sank into the cushioned chair. At least he had somewhere nice to sit while he suffered. Shuffling through the parchments, Harry's eyes caught a book. It was black and had a leather cover. The tips were outlined in gold, and on the back it said, Tom Marvolo Riddle. A journal or a diary? That is my master's special book. It's like me, Nagini told him, curling tighter around his shoulders. Her tongue flicked out for a second. Nagini, you are vastly more important than a collection of parchment. The serpent's tongue brushed against his cheek. flatterer. However, the book is like me because it's important to my master. It's protected because we share essence of my master. Essence? The hell? When master wants to talk to himself, he'll write in the book, and the him in the book writes back. They stroke each other's egos. The snake hissed, shaking her head. Voldemort wrote in the book in order to talk to himself because he was also in the book? What kind of dark magic did it take in order to implant one's conscience into a book? And why did Voldemort have to do such a thing? Wasn't his own mind enough? Voldemort's mind is connected to this? Asked Harry, thinking that if they were connected, then he could probably speak to Voldemort even though he wasn't conscious. No, a piece of his soul is. I have one too, but it's a secret, so don't tell anyone. Harry almost winced at the thought. Horcruxes. There was an entry about them in the Black Family Library. They were considered the worst kind of dark magic to use because it involved soul magic. Mutilating the soul was dangerous, it was maddening, and incredibly foolish. No wonder Voldemort looked like a snake-human hybrid. Horcruxes ensured a kind of immortality, but it was more like being tethered to the world. That was it. They twisted the magic severely because half of the soul was taken to make one. And according to Nagini, both she and the book were Horcruxes. Meaning Voldemort had to be operating on only a quarter of a soul at least. If he made others, then how much of a soul was he using currently? And the man had called it his foolishness of youth. Both he and Dumbledore had said such. So did Dumbledore know as well? It was a good thing that only family members could get into the room. The Consort ring allowed him entrance because he was now magically connected to Voldemort. Voldemort would have a similar ring on his own wrist, proving their alliance. Harry didn't want to know what would happen should anyone know about Voldemort's Horcruxes. He resolved to keep the information to himself. Harry set the book down gently. If a part of Voldemort was in it, then maybe they would be able to help him. Even if it was a younger piece of him, the man's intelligence was his most striking talent. So even a younger Voldemort should be able to understand these things. Reaching for the quill resting on the desk, Harry dipped it in the inkwell and began his message. Hello, my name is Harry James Potter, and I am by magic Consort Slytherin. Magical Britain has been taken by some kind of disease that is infecting only those with dark magic. Shortly after discovering one of the main components in the disease, Voldemort ended up falling ill, leaving me to take over his duties as leader until a cure is found. Nagini told me about your conversations with him. Can you help? The words disappeared, sinking into the page. Then slowly, ever so slowly, an elegant script returned. Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle, and I will help you to the best of my ability. But I need to know everything that has happened first. Any detail you give has meaning. Rigel Lestrange had been sequestered in his home, not allowed to leave for anything. He did, however, get to have visitors that were intensely purified before entering the premises, such as the twins who were out in the entryway of the courtyard just beyond the wards, allowing his mother to put them through all manner of spells and cleanses. He watched, waiting for them to finish so he could see them. He hadn't been able to see any of his friends recently because of the disease. His mum had been losing it more than normal, and his brothers had been extra protective. However, when it was finished, the twins weren't led into the house like the other times. Whatever they had told his mum had her even more frantic, and she grabbed both of them by the arms and disapparated immediately. I just slumped against the sill. Not fair! Rigel, complete Serpents ordered from the drawing room. Bowden, the younger team, went to join his siblings. The twins better have a good explanation. Harry sighed. If dealing with paperwork wasn't bad enough, the head elf of Slytherin Manor, Vashti, just came and informed him that there was something wrong with Voldemort. The man had succumbed to the dark magic-eating disease. What more could there be? What more could possibly go wrong right now? When he entered the man's cold chambers, honestly, he thought they would be a lot more comfortable. The elf was worrying about the wizard's body. Voldemort was in the center of a large circular bed where the black hangings were spelled to float above their heads, letting them see properly.
First is to be applying the special paste from Master Snape and then giving Master Voldy the special tea. But Master Voldy is different again. He wasn't this stiff last night or the night before. Vashti has been attentive.
Harry approached carefully, not really wanting to look at the naked man while he was unconscious. It didn't seem right. Yes, he was actually a healer, and it wouldn't be creepy if he was doing his job, but it still made him feel bad and awkward. It was Voldemort, damn it! Tom Riddle's features were frozen in perfect repose. The man was lying in the very center of the bed, the duvet pulled up to his waist. His chest bared to their view, covered in a light sheen of sweat and rising slowly in the forced stasis he was in. Reaching out, Harry placed a hand on the man's chest to test the stiffness himself. Indeed, it was as if rigor mortis was setting in quickly. I would think that it would take longer for him to succumb to the illness because he has the largest magical core around, Harry murmured.
The elf nodded. Master's core is large, but he uses a lot of magic to keep his glamour up. Vashti doesn't approve, but Master does as Master pleases.
Merlin, damn it! Of course that was it! One day Harry was going to punch him in the face. He sorely needed it! Voldemort's glamour was using a steady portion of his magic. It was stated clearly by Dumbledore that using magic while ill would make the disease worse. That was why people were knocked unconscious, so they couldn't use magic any further. Voldemort's body was stiffening faster because he was still using magic, even when in a forced coma. Glaring in frustration, Harry placed his hands on the man's glamour chest and forced his magic over the man's form, dismantling the stupid glamour as quickly as possible. Feeling around, he could spot several holes in the magical web and attack them viciously. Slowly, ever so slowly, the glamour fell away and Voldemort's body was fully revealed. Harry's hands still on his chest, which was incredibly smooth and covered in scales in certain places. Harry's entire face flamed and he pulled away. He should be good now. Apply the paste. He fled the memory of Voldemort's elongated body and his lower half barely being covered by his duvet. The feeling of his smooth skin forever seared into his memory. Harry began wringing his shaking hands. He tried to ignore the mild panic setting in as he realized what he had just done. Voldemort had been dying faster. Voldemort had almost died. He wasn't feeling well now. Too much for one day. Pardon! Bellatrix's voice rang out across the grounds of the Dark Lord's Manor. As she was one of the Inner Circle Knights, she had personal access to the main grounds, though not every room in the building. The head elf was smart enough to just open the door instead of questioning her. Very smart. Behind her were the twin redhead menaces. The news itself was worrying, and while she just loved to go and handle it herself, it would be smarter to consult the boy she'd pushed into the position of Consort Slytherin. After making such a big deal about him being in charge, she couldn't back out now, not after manipulating him into accepting his place at her lord's side. A manipulation Dumbledore seemed to agree with, strangely enough. But this was not the time to be thinking about the barmy old goat. She needed butter! Said young wizard was coming down the corridor, no doubt already aware that he had guests. He was looking a little rough, sleep-deprived. Bellatrix, what's wrong? He asked, voice weary and tired.
Your little friends here have discovered something important!
Shoving the two forward, she sent them a sharp look. Speak! George? Fred, what's going on? The twins only shared a minute look before they exploded. We had been skulking around Nocturne Alley looking for some cheap potion ingredients. And then we saw that woman, you know, the one Hermione's been whining about for the past month and a half. Umbridge, the twin on the left explained. The toad-like one. The really gross one. The one that wants to label a bunch of creatures as dark and dangerous and have their accessibility limited, as well as their rights. Which is really confusing, seeing as you'd think being dark would make them okay to the Dark Lord, but whatever. Anyway, she was walking beside Mundungus Fletcher. He's a low-level thief and a terrible liar, not someone you should care about, don't worry. She was passing him some of those muggle needles and telling him to find as many dark creatures as he could and inject them with whatever was inside them. She then handed him a few galleons. Bellatrix was bouncing. She was itching to destroy something or someone, preferably this Umbridge. She wanted to do things that were borderline illegal, things that would be fun. Potter looked horrified, yet not surprised. Luna said something about her being a problem later, he mumbled. I guess this was it. And this is later. She works at the ministry, right?
Bellatrix nodded. In the DRCMC. Now that she wants to work there. She's been trying to reach an administrative position for years, but no one trusts her. Basically, she's the most worthless worker in the department. She was a Slytherin a few years below me, and she was particularly pathetic in classes, but pretended that she was the best.
So you were telling me that this woman who was lackluster in school and has a dead-end job that has gone nowhere for like 30 years somehow managed to create the disease that's slowly killing off the dark magical cores? Is she a dark witch?
Bellatrix nodded. However, I'm not sure she personally created it. She doesn't have a mastery in anything, and her skills aren't good enough to create anything beyond the Black Quill, which was a simple piece of charm work. Also, she apparently suggested dark creatures, not wizards or witches. So either she didn't know that all those with dark cores would be affected, or she's stupid. Both are possible.
So we'll need to find her schedule and then take her into custody when she wouldn't expect it.
Potter turned to her and said,
Would you be willing to use legitimacy calmly if she chooses not to talk?
Bellatrix could feel the grin spreading. It was practically giving her the best gift anyone ever could. She decided that having Potter as a stand-in later was great. Do I have to be gentle? The woman asked, voice barely a whisper, almost sultry.
Potter and the twins shared a worried look, but the young man shook his head. You don't need to be kind, but I would like her cognizant once finished. If she is the one who created this, she needs to be alive for punishment. If not, you can have her once we get everything we need from her.
Who knew that Potter could be so vindictive? It was a good look on him. Bellatrix was sure that the jumpy feeling in her stomach was pride. A year ago, would he have been just as okay with it? Who knew? But she was so very much with this plan.
Dumbledore stared at the young man who had decided to take on such a heavy burden, all for the sake of people he probably didn't know or care about. In Albus's mind, sacrificing for others came natural. It seemed like the right thing to do. However, he'd long ago realized that not everyone felt the same way. Slytherins in particular looked after themselves and their own first. Tom and Gellert had been right when they told him that not everyone wanted to be happy and helpful all the time, and Tom reprimanding him over how teaching such a thing was wrong and forcing children to believe that their duty in life was to sacrifice themselves for others, it opened his eyes, in a sense. Harry Potter was not doing this for the betterment of the magical society he was a part of. The boy cared about Tom and his own family. He cared about the creatures and animals that were being affected. He allowed himself to be tricked by Bellatrix into a position he actually could not get out of now, all because he cared. But only for certain people. And he was honestly trying. The whole of magical Britain were unaware that Tom was ill. They did not know that he had been taken over by the sickness, and it was a smart idea to keep them in the dark, to not let them know what was going on in full. It would be dangerous. Already since his return, he'd been confronted by several people who wanted to revive the Order of the Phoenix in an attempt to fight against Tom once again. But things were fine as they were. Tom had actually made things better than worse. Dumbledore did not leave the prison thinking about taking back control of a land he never had control of in the first place. He had a goal, a job to do. And once his job was finished, then he too would be finished. This was about more than controlling a group of people. This was more than getting the revenge that some people wanted it desperately. This was life. The life of Tom. The life of Harry. Two people who had managed to find each other, despite their shortcomings, who managed to form a bond of sorts, despite not understanding exactly what they felt for each other. And it wasn't love, but it could be. Admiration was there, respect and worry as well. They certainly liked one another. And now that Tom had fallen, Harry was left to handle the drama and fear on his own. He was now faced with the reality that life wasn't as easy as it seemed, and that danger could spring up at any moment. Tom was immortal in a sense, but he was still human, and Tom's humanity had been proven. When Tom awoke, he wasn't going to be happy, but this could be beneficial for Dumbledore's own plan. Harry dedicated himself to the work he was struggling with. He stopped at St. Mungo's on the regular to see how the progress for the cure was going. He was giving his all for the cause. And while Albus had made many mistakes and let himself be blinded by the light, he had vowed to help the best he could. And he would. Our relations with France are apparently strained, which I'm surprised by, actually, because Voldemort never gave any indication that there was something wrong, nor does he broadcast his business for everyone to know. But still, unexpected. What good would that do for anyone? Scaring the general public would only make things harder on him and everybody else. To keep this to himself and his most trusted was the best thing to do. It could induce mass panic. It could also alert the French that not everything in magical Britain is as it should be. Allowing them to have any kind of lead would put MB at a disadvantage. Not smart. But what am I supposed to do in regards to this sudden revelation? I can speak the barest hints of French, so it isn't like I can converse with any foreign dignitaries, and I'm not sure the training I received for being an heir of an ancient house is going to give me the help I need to deal with high-ranking people from foreign lands. Also, no one can enter or leave the country, meaning this has to be conducted via fire call. I have sighed in exasperation, in case you were wondering. Anyway, there is actually a runic circle you can create for yourself that will work as a translator. I can't believe you didn't learn that. What is Hogwarts teaching these days? Okay, 1, I am a magizoologist and a healer, not a rune master. 2, thanks for the info. You are like a child sometimes. I'm only 18, what do you expect? I was much more mature when I was your age. Heck, I'm technically only 16 right now, so I am more mature than you are, and I'm younger than you. Yeah, right. And you and Voldemort converse on a near constant basis, according to Nagini. He's probably filled you with all sorts of information. So no, you've been around for like 70 years gathering information. Throws you the 2-finger salute. So suck it. Why do you keep doing that? What? That strange thing with the asterisks. So that you know what my reactions are? You can't see my face, can you? No, unfortunately. I'm certain you're lovely to behold, though. Can we get back to the planning? This is getting weird. And stop flirting with me. Sure thing, darling. I'm not your darling. Why do you keep saying things like that? It's creepy and unnecessary. Because Voldemort has told me a lot about you, and I can tell that he feels something for you. From meeting you myself, I see just why he likes you so much. Is Voldemort the suave? He could be. Unfortunately, his experiences in life have left him a little unsure of what to do around those he is smitten with. If you were a mere strumpet that he wanted for his bed, he could have had you in his arms in an instant. But you are different. He wants more from you than he did any of his lovers. Merlin, he gushed over how you liked his true appearance. He wants you the most. Okay. What's a strumpet? Oh, you mean a sex worker. What? I prefer the term sex worker and leave it at that. Fine. So this conversation keeps taking strange turns. There are just some things I don't want to know. In any case, please don't tell me about his past lovers. Ever. I don't want to know. Tell me about how to deal with French wizards. That would be good. Why do you want to avoid any reminders that Voldemort has feelings for you? Why try to hide that you feel something in return? Because I don't even know if what you say is the truth. For all I know, you're trying to butter me up to him so I'll consent to marrying him fully and having his children. You already did by accepting the position of Consort Slytherin. No, I consented to taking the position of Consort in order to help. That was the magical marriage. But by law, we are not fully married, and I am not required to finish it or have his children. There has been no legal contract drawn up yet. My body is still my body, my mind is still my mind, my soul is still my soul, my heart is still my heart. He doesn't hold right to any of them until I give him leave. He won't. I see you feel strongly about this. Yes, I won't have a loveless marriage filled with days where we avoid each other, where I become bitter over things. I'm 18. I'm not ready to take this sudden leap so early on. Besides, what exactly does he want? Is he like Malfoy, who prefers his wife to work with other women to learn the gossip? Is he going to be a control freak? We both know he likes control. I have no proof beyond what others have told me and some of the things he's done. I believe that if you want something, you are going to have to tell him instead of assuming he will know. I've never been in a relationship, but I have witnessed many a blunder. There is always one who seems to assume that their significant other should know exactly what they mean and want all the time. The fact is, a good relationship is built on trust and communication. How do you expect to set boundaries if you say nothing about them? How do you expect him to respect your choices if you never talk about them? Relationships are a two-way road. That has to be the most useful thing you've said thus far. Never mind all of the other things I have told you. So when Lord Cockwomble wakes up, we should sit down and discuss what exactly we're both looking for in a relationship? Don't you mean your relationship? Don't push it. Be glad that I am considering a relationship beyond whatever the heck we have now. Then I can ask for no more. Good. Now tell me more about the damn runic circle and exactly where I can find the instructions on how to make one. Or, you can list the instructions right now. That would work just fine. You'll need 9 kilograms of ground up crystal, clear crystal, and make sure that it's actually real crystal. Don't let anyone con you with lookalikes. I know what clear crystal looks like. Bloody hell, Tom.
What are you doing? Unhand me this instant!
Hermione looked up from her desk and leaned out of her cubicle in order to get a good look at what was going on. Several of her other co-workers were doing the very same, curious to see what sort of drama was unfolding on the main floor of the DRCMZ. Dolores Umbridge was being dragged away from her cubicle by Horrors, 2 leading the front, 2 holding her hostage, and 2 in the back. All of them had their wands out. Umbridge was swearing vengeance upon all of them and threatening them should they not release her. Not smart.
What do you think she did?
Morrigan Freeson whispered.
Who cares? Let's just hope she doesn't come back,
Hermione answered, returning to her work, not caring to pay attention any further. Severus Snape was honestly far too old for this, and yet it was all happening anyway. Yet when dealing with unspeakables, he could not go in with any ideas of his own. Who knew what they had to get up to in their jobs? He was going to try and not judge them, but it wasn't as if he could promise. So this particular stone will no doubt suck in the magic of anything around it, human or otherwise. Yes, sir, the right unspeakable answered. So broken down into almost a perfect powder would make it easy to apply to potions or solutions. Even food. However, something else was done to the stone itself because the magic isn't being sucked out. It's being redirected to attack the body, Severus noted. We have learned that it reacts to wounds very well. Yes, almost too well, actually. Tell me, Severus ordered as he made notes. He could already feel the headache coming on.
Runes can channel energy and magic. Some runic spells and circles concentrate on specific effects. The stone is capable of absorbing those effects if placed near an active rune. It will then act as the rune would, and the more magic it has absorbed, the stronger the effects will be. Almost set the office on fire that one day.
The 2 shared a small, uncomfortable laugh at the memory, no doubt. The other unspeakable sighed. It's resistant to transfiguration. It's almost impossible to transfigure even a small piece into anything else. We made sure to check by having everyone try, and nothing happened.
Inflammable. Any fire that goes near it will cause an explosion that burns everything within a set radius, though not the stone itself.
The melting point is over 1,000 degrees Celsius. It gives off a burnt charcoal scent when it's melted.
However, it is malleable, if that makes any sense. Like dough, almost. It will curve around any pressure put on it. It is not adhesive in the slightest, however.
It's, strangely enough, also very clear once stretched out far enough. Seems to enhance vision like omnioculars would. We have no explanation for that, though.
It's deceptively heavy. We can't lift it ourselves, so we levitate it and conduct experiments that way.
Yet it floats. Yes, the left unspeakable agreed. It's very strange and we don't understand it, but there are holes that appear when it's placed in water. Like a sponge, perhaps. It will simply sit atop the water until it is moved, and the water doesn't remain when you move it, so it's sort of repellent. Both were nodding with the assessment.
Finally, we've noted that it tastes like dirt.
Severus sent them a look, not believing what he had just heard. Someone actually licked it.
No, he ate a small piece that was grinded into a powder and was ill afterwards. Didn't come back for a week.
Unspeakables. They were so strange. The scientists for the magical community. Did he have any notable reactions to it?
We could just get it for you, sir.
Do so. They fled quickly, leaving him to question his life. Scientists and adventurers would be the death of him. He just knew it.
Everything will be fine, Sev. They're doing us a great service,
said Lily from her table over by the far wall. With a sneer, the man couldn't help but relent to her claim. She was right, in a sense. Now all he needed was a bottle of whiskey. Or maybe brandy. That would be nice. What did you give to Mundungus Fletcher? Dolores Umbridge was magically forced into a chair and then held captive. Her wand had been taken and scrutinized in every possible way, and every manner of ward was placed so that she could not escape. They could not take any chances when a lead had finally presented itself. She absolutely refused to speak, no matter what questions Harry asked her, and that was fine. He didn't have to do this the nice way, after all. Harry was simply taught to be respectful, and Harry found that he did not want to be nice to the possible reason for his cat's death, the possible reason for Voldemort's close call the other day. Madame Umbridge, I hope you understand the situation for what it is. Have you not seen any of the notices that have been placed up by both Lucius Malfoy and Bellatrix Lestrange?
The woman's nose wrinkled, the haughty look overcoming her scotched features. I don't pay attention to random flyers that mean nothing. They're simply trying to make the rest of us more deserving folk jealous.
He cocked a brow. So you haven't heard about the crisis the magical Britain is currently in? How the entire country has been quarantined and people have been forbidden from leaving the lands? Umbridge's stiff countenance loosened, a bit confusion obvious in her face. Do you realize that there is a disease going around that is slowly killing off anyone and anything that has a dark magical core? That not only are creatures falling prey to this, but even many wizards and witches as well? It forces their magic to paralyze them from the inside, killing them slowly with their own magic. Umbridge shook her head.
It's impossible. Nothing can do that.
Harry's smirk was all sharp and dark humor. He enjoyed her squirming more than he thought he would. I'm afraid that it's true. So much so that several prominent lords and ladies have fallen prey to this disease. So much so that the one responsible and those involved will be in Azkaban for the rest of their lives. Once they've paid the remuneration, of course. Several have died so far, and the anger is rising. The woman was beginning to shake. Slowly her confidence was slipping away into nothingness. He enjoyed it immensely. He wanted to see her cry. Harry leaned over the table and added, voice rough with his pent-up anger. Voldemort has fallen prey to the illness. Not only is this treasonous, but now it's a murder attempt on the leader of magical Britain himself, and has started a blood feud with those involved. The Slytherin family isn't the only family that will be demanding retribution against its enemies, and it will happen one way or another. His eyes flashed, and he knew they were glowing like they always did when he was angry. Tears were building in her eyes. Her terror was perfection. It's a shame you don't wish to speak to us civilly, said Harry almost flippantly, standing with all the calm of an heir to an ancient house, the nonchalance that was drilled into him since birth. It would have saved you from Bellatrix and her fun. Harry left the room, passing the mad woman on the way out. The witch was swaying side to side, her grand manic curls falling in her eyes, and a mess of hair. She sauntered into the room, fingers trailing over her bent wand, caressing the dark wood. Her magic was jumping excitedly, understanding what was about to happen and rejoicing in it.
Just would you do always want to play with Bella?
The woman crooned shrilly.
No!
Umbridge's cries were cut off when the door closed. Harry couldn't help but grin maniacally to himself. Bellatrix would get the information they needed. And to think that all of this could have been avoided had the woman decided to work with them.